What if I tell you that Crud Operation is just like the Bahubali sending messages to the king via a messenger, like a crow, pigeons, etc. The API is the middleware between front end and back end, which helps in data transfer. They are like endpoints, URL endpoints, and I will talk specifically about Crud operations. Like it's like Bahubali wants to add a new army to his group, then Bahubali is a front end and he requires a post method to the back end for the new data entry. Before the battle, if Bahubali wants to check how many teams are in there, he can use the method, the get method to see all the armies in his location. If Bahubali wants to promote Kotappa to a commander, then he can use or update or patch method. If Bahubali finds some traitor in his army, then he can use delete method to delete that person.
Hello guys, today we are talking about how you can do CRUD operations in React.js using MongoDB, Express, React and Node.js. Node.js is a runtime environment of JavaScript that is used for backend, and for backend we have to learn much about APIs. APIs are application protocol interface, and client and server communicate between each other using APIs. Client is our front end and server is our backend, and HTTP methods and URL endpoints are equally very important for this data transfer. There are four HTTP methods like get to get the data, post to post the data, delete to delete the specific data, and put to update the specific data. All these transfer between each other is done in JSON format, which are human readable format and very easily manipulated by the computer. Let's start the video. API endpoints are like doors of house with a specific purpose. Like localhost authentication, auth is for authentication, slash users is for user data, slash products represents collection of products, and orders a specific order ID for specific order resources. We can use any name we want according to our website. Like if we are using a task manager, then we can use slash tasks localhost slash tasks for the API endpoints, where all the data that front end sends to the backend are stored in the API endpoint, and backend use get method to get all the data from API endpoints, and front end used post method to post the data that are uploaded by the client from the form submission. Get method is used to retrieve all items data. Post method is for creating, put for updating, and delete for deleting. I have already talked about this. Like localhost is our localhost API, and localhost API student contains the information student name and student roll number. For we have to save the data in MongoDB, we can use the command called any name you can dot save function. This will save the data in MongoDB. I will tell you practically, just wait for the example. For our MongoDB to know what kind of data they have to store, we have to create a schema called mongoose schema. And to create a mongoose schema, we can use const a variable name where we store the data. Variable name can be anything. And new mongoose schema will create title, type should be string, because title always is string. Required, we have to require the title because we don't know what kind of data it is unless we have the title. And description can be anything. And to export the schema that we used in our MongoDB, we can use module.exports mongodb.model, the model name and the type of the model. This is very important for creating a schema to store the data in MongoDB, to know what kind of data that MongoDB is storing. And to connect the MongoDB to our server, we can use mongoose.connect function. I'll show you practically using the MongoDB URL. MongoDB URL is given by our MongoDB database. It can be anything like MongoDB Atlas database, or if you install the software in your laptop, it is automatically served a server. And to create the MongoDB database in your laptop, we can use commands like npm install mongoose and mongod. And Axios is used for API fetching. Course is used for front end is running in different endpoint and backend is running in different endpoint. Then we have to use course to do better communication between them. And Express is used for middleware. And I would like to tell you how the data is transferred from the first to the last. Sends a specific data to a specific URL using a post method. Post method in itself is like posting some information to a URL. The backend receives and processes this request, then stores the data in MongoDB using many commands, which I will tell you. And if the front end needs any data when the website loads automatically, then it uses the get method. And to update, it uses patch or put method. And to delete, it uses delete method. Like action here, you can see front end uses post method app.toPost. If front end wants to read the data, then it uses app.get method, and where the data is saved route handler. There is the important thing. To update or to delete something, we don't want to update all the data or delete all the data at once. We want to update or delete all specific data. To find the specific data, you have to use /id. This is very important. Fetch is the Axios method that is used to update, delete, or any kind of CRUD operations. Using here, you have to specify a method. I'm buying a method get to get all the data from the API endpoint like MongoDB database to our website, and that we have to do a JSON format to understand by human understandable form. This is all about the REST API working, and I will give you a perfect example for this. This is my program which is running. I will program first. Like I would like to delete this data. and delete also this data. Then I would like to add a task name, like I would like cook, which cost me around 50 rs. A task cook is 50 rs, and I would like to edit it. If you want to edit, then I can give like 100. Here you can see the data is already fetched, and I would like to go to my MongoDB. This is like my task cluster. Here you can see cook is here, and I updated the cook to 100, and it has already been updated to my database. And ID is this. Every task file has different kind of ID to identify as a unique one. Here let's go to my front end. This is my front end. This is my CSS. CSS is very hard. I will teach you in other video, or you can do ChatGPT. Nowadays ChatGPT is very famous for CSS, because many properties that we have to understand, and many things that we have to memorize, and memorization is not something you want to do in programming. Server.js, we have to require express. Using const express is equals to require express for installing the middleware. Const app, we have to everything that stores in express, we have to give it a name in variable app so that we can use it properly. And we have to require mongoose for MongoDB database, and course for front-end and backend communication. This is not I'm using now, but this is like .env, where you have to put the MongoDB URL, app.use course and app.use expression.json. This, and here comes the most important part, mongoose.connect. I'm connecting my MongoDB URL. URL you can find when you create a new project in MongoDB database, and this function connects the MongoDB database to my server, and if it connected, it consoles MongoDB connected, and if it catches error, it calls database connection error, so that we can find the error, and it will provide the error, why the error has occurred. And I have already told you that we need to create a schema or model for MongoDB database to store the data accordingly. Like I'm creating a task website, so that I'm using name and cost, because name should be there, what kind of thing I'm purchasing, and cost should be there, how much it cost me. Here comes the most important part, routes. I will talk to you this in after I teach you much about front end. We have to use React, use state, and use effect hooks from the React. This is the modules that are pre-built libraries from the React. Axios is most important for data fetching, because I am using the middleware Axios.js. Axios is used to fetch the data from backend or frontend from the URL endpoints. Here I am giving 4 variables names: name of my item, cost of my item, and editing it if I am editing item or anything or else. At first the name is empty, because use state hooks gives the empty state to the first variable, and set name is like when you update something, it goes to the set name, and it automatically updates to our front end. This is very important for use effect hooks. And to fetch the task, if we want to fetch the data from backend to front end, when our website loads automatically at first, then we have to create a function. Const new data is our function, and async function is used wait for the data to be fetched, because we don't want to automatically load the data unless it is fetched, which gives the error. So we are using async and await function to wait for the data to load into our front end, and after that only the data is shown in our front end. Once response is a new variable, and we are using await. Axios is a fetching method to get. Do you remember the get method that I have told you? It is about getting the data from the front end. I am using the localhost, and this is the main point. This API endpoint stores the data from front end that I post to the backend. Like here I am posting axios.post any item that is saved from the front end. Like here, if I am typing in data, this is a task. This goes as a post method to the backend, and when we open the website at the first place, it fetches the data using the get method. And you might be wondering how the data is fetched automatically when the website opens. Here we use the function use effect function. Inside the use effect function, we are calling the new data function that automatically loads the data. Use effect is used to load anything at first when the website restarts or opens. And here is another part, we have to save data. Like if editing is true, at first editing is here, you can see editing is false, but if editing goes to true, then it will update the data to the specific URL, and the data that can be edited are name and cost. Else, if the data is not being edited, then we have to post the data to the backend. Post method uses the localhost 5000 port and .task. This is very important. All the data name and cost are being posted to the task URL, and after the data is posted, again we would like to reset the form so that new user can automatically update the data. And we are using set name, set cost to automatically goes to empty, and set editing goes to again false. Like I can tell you that. And when I edit the task, it goes to my div file, but here the but here it gets clear because of these functions. And when we like to delete the task const delete function, we create a delete function using async, and we have to give a specific id using a props, so that we would like to delete a specific data in a backend. Delete method calls the http url using a specific id, so that it deletes the specific id of the data. And after the data is deleted, again it calls the function to get all the data, fetches all the data. And this is our main div file. This is our container and main div file that we are seeing is here. Cost manager for better management. This is the h1 heading that I might not need to tell you, because it is very easier to understand, and I think you guys might know it. And here I am providing a two input forms. Class id input, value should be name. The value that I am providing here is name, so here is value name. Placeholder is enter task name. Here we are seeing on change, and whenever we are typing something, there is props, it calls the props set name to either targeted value. That means whenever we are typing something, it calls the set name function and updates automatically to this. So whenever we are typing something, it is automatically updated here. Again, this portion is also the same, like whenever we are changing something, whenever we are typing something, it is calling the set cost function either targeted value using, so it updates the cost function. And here is a button, like whenever if button on click save data, this calls the save data function. Here is save data, and if we are editing, it will edit the data. If else we are not, and here I am not editing data, I am editing the task, so else it will call the post function. If it is editing, it will call the editing function, otherwise it will update the task or add the task function. And whenever I click a task, it will call the save data function, and save data function will post the data to the backend. Like if editing is true, it will call the update task, otherwise it will call the add task function. Like whenever I am here editing, whenever I click edit function, it calls the update task. Whenever I am editing is true, it calls the update task, otherwise it calls the add task function. I am not editing, it will call add task function. This is a conditional statement rendering. And here comes the main important part. Here is the div where all the updated data will call itself. Task.map item. This is a prop, we can type any name in here. It will map every data in the tasks variable. Like here is the task variable. It will map every function, every data in the task variable, so that we can render every data in the div here. Like in React, we are rendering every data using an ID. Every data is given a specific ID, so that it can be rendered very easily using a ID. Like here I am giving a span name item.name and item.cost. It will render item name and item cost. And another function gives action like button. Here is edit button and here is delete button. And on button icon button, on clicking the edit button, it will edit the name, cost and ID also. And if we want to delete the button, it will call delete function. It will call the delete function here, which will delete the data. And if you call the edit function, it will edit the data to the set name, set cost or set editing is true or false. And after that we have to export the file using export default app, so that our main component renders it automatically in the React.js. And when it comes to backend, like running on localhost 5000 in our backend, like here you can see server is running on this port. App.get method in the backend gets all the data from frontend to backend using a get method, and it saves that data in response.json format. And when we want to save the data in MongoDB, we are using app.post method to post the data to MongoDB with the function create everything that is in our URL. Like request.body will save everything that is in our URL. And if you type request.body.name, it will save only the name, but we don't like to save only the name. We like to save all the things, so that we are using request.body. And if we want to update the data, we have to update a specific data, like give a specific ID to it. MongoDB will automatically provide an ID to every function. We don't have to give it manually. So const updated variable will store the data of find by ID and update. It will update automatically find by ID. It update the ID with every request that is given by frontend to the backend with a new data, or with new data like name and cost that is given from frontend to backend to post to update the data to backend MongoDB. And delete method is used to delete the data using the request.params.id. And after the data is deleted, it will respond with success true. and this is the cost management system. Here is the API CRUD. This is actually CRUD, called the CRUD operation, and it is very much important in backend courses. Thank you for this video. My next video might be about how the functions are created, called arrow functions and other functions. Stay tuned for that.